Hello, good morning everyone. I am Precious Subtanesha, your teacher for today. Before we are going to start our lesson, may I call on Miss Rose to lead our prayer. Amen. So now let us proceed on our activity. In this activity, I will divide the class into two groups. In this activity, you have to give the correct words to get more points and win the game. Is that clear? I'm going to flash the words and you are going to guess what is the correct word. Very good class. You got all the correct answer in that activity. So now let us proceed to our proper lesson. Our lesson for today is all about learning contracts. What do we mean by learning contracts? A learning contract is a short agreement between a learner and facilitator. It outlines what is expected to be learned in a specific period and the method of assessing learning. Introducing learning contracts. A learning contract is a way of structuring a learning experience. There are various types of learning contracts for different purposes. Whatever the type of format, they can be described as an agreement between learning and tutor or facilitator which specifies what the learner needs to learn or be able to do objectives. 2. How they will go about learning and who will help or support. What the learner can produce to show that learning has been successful. Evidence of learning. Last, how and by whom will the learning be assessed? How will be evaluate the evidence? Drawing up a learning contract can be effective and creative activity. It will force you as a tutor and a learner to have a constructive discussion about learning outcome and how they will be achieved. Learning contracts can be seen as lying along with a continuum with fully self-directed at one end or fully prescribed at the other. In a fully self-directed learning contract, the learner might draft the entire contract and then negotiate and agree the contents with the tutor. At the other end of the continuum, the objectives and criteria for achieving the objectives will be pre-specified. Note: the learner and the project facilitator together will negotiate that means of achieving the objectives in this project. And now let's look at the steps involved in making the contract. So don't be daunted. The key to it is getting the learner involved and with both you not feeling too worry if you don't get the contract right. It can always be renegotiated. First, what does the learner need to learn? First, with a prescribed contract, the learning outcome or objectives will have been specified. These then become the basis for the learning contract. 2. With a self-directed contract, learners set the learner their own objectives. It is negotiated agreement, so you may have to strike some balance between what learners feel they need to do and what the project requires them to do. It is very important that there is agreement between the learner and the project facilitator of the content of the contract before it is signed. The second types of making the learning contract is the achieving the objectives. So this might involve directing the learners to specific books, journals, articles, case studies, videos, websites, as well as to specific people, fellow trainers, or others professional for talking to them or watching activities related to learning and questions. So learners should also work out ways to achieve the objectives in a partnership. So next, types of learning contract is providing the evidence. So personal reflection and analysis by the learner or group on events relevant to the objective is a useful way to identifying learning. Such reflections should just be descriptive account of what has taken place but show lessons learned, weaknesses identified or improved, etc. In other instances, a demonstration of an activity undertaken to an appropriate person via the website, it is also appropriate. So the last is assessing the evidence. So the learning evidence needs to be assessed either informally or if certification is required formally. Well, defined objectives will help at this stage. Write measurable objectives. So learners should also work out ways to achieve the objectives in a partnership. So checklists can be used to assess performance. Assessments for a learning contracts can range from simple informal peer assessment to formal assessment according to the standards set by your or another organization. So the learning contract should not only specify how the evidence will be assessed, but also mention who should be doing the assessing. Don't be intimidated by the term learning contract. The emphasis is on learning, not on contract. It's to get people involved and to have ownership on their learning. So that could be all. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learn in this lesson. Bye. God bless.